Hello everybody and welcome back to Step Next Training, and today's topic is all about corporate classroom engagement. Let's talk about that. Data from a Forbes study says that only 15% of employees are actively engaged with their work. So what does that have to do with training? Well, you're taking those employees that interviewed and sign up to do that job. You're now telling them to come out of that job and go to a corporate training. Now, some of them will say, hey, this is great. This is what I've been asking for. This is my growth potential. And they're going to be actively engaged in your classroom. And the other large portion of the students coming into your corporate classroom are looking at this and saying, why do I have to go to this other training? This is a waste of time. Why can't I just get my work done? This is the struggle a corporate trainer has each and every time they get in front of a classroom. Due to increase engagement in a audience that isn't wanting to engage. Well, I'll tell you the first tip. It's not what you're currently doing. To give you some background, I used to run the training and development for a select group of people within a very large organization. Within that role, I worked with subject matter experts and developed over 100 classes. And on top of that, I developed my own personal classes as well to teach the students. And I developed an online MOOC for the class structure so that we would get a more flipped classroom experience for the students at hand. So I've done a lot of the progressive teachings, and with all the classes and all the MOOCs and online learning and mini videos and everything else, I was still not getting good engagement. So I went on Google and I said, hey Google, how do I increase engagement in my classroom? And I got this huge list from several different experts, and I mashed it all together into my top 10 list of things to do to increase engagement in the classroom. I made a proactive plan and I implemented all of the items that I found online and from all the experts of corporate engagement. And it was a great list, and it made the classroom better. It made the engagement better, but by a minuscule amount. I was still not happy, and I was still looking around the room and seeing disengagement all over. And I was like, there's got to be another way to step up to a higher level of engagement. This is still not working. So I went back to the drawing board, and I had a personal finance class I was going to teach in several weeks. And I was like, why don't I develop this in a different way? What can I do that can help the engagement of this class? Well, the first thing I did is I got rid of my slides. I had a whole slide deck that was ready to go, and I had my learning objectives and everything else laid out very well in my slide deck, and I scrapped it, 100% scrapped it. And I said, I'm starting all over. Well, I knew what the structure was. I knew what the learning objectives were, and I wrote those down on a piece of paper. Then I integrated those learning objectives and a couple statistics that I wanted to make sure I covered in the class, and I put it into a quiz show. I used a tool called Kahoot. It's an online quiz show that anybody can use. It's free for some. And what I did is I set off and I just laid out my skeleton using these Kahoot questions. So I was covering certain topics, I was covering certain bullet points and topic matters that I wanted to make sure I got covered. And I laid it all out in that quiz show, and that was it. I used the quiz show and the questions that I laid out in the quiz show to step through my topics. So I'd ask a question, maybe a generic statistics on personal finance. Then my second question was, what would you do in that circumstance? And then I got not only class participation, but the engagement from everybody else in the classroom just perked up out through the roof. Everybody was actively in the conversation. They were learning from their other students. The students were teaching the other students, and it was open-ended. The first thing I said during the class was, I'm not an expert in personal finance, and I'm not. And what that allowed them to do is they felt just as an expert on certain subcategories of personal finance, and they brought their expertise to the table. And it created a conversation. And if you look at any long-term studies about what does engagement do, the first thing it does is it creates deep learning. Thinking about that topic creates deep learning. And the conversation that we're having created that deep learning cycle on personal finance. The students had their own personal finance questions, and they felt comfortable, given the structure of the classroom, to ask their questions to the instructor. Now, I might have not even had the perfect answers to those questions. And a matter of fact, I had one of my other students help me along with answering one of those questions. And that actually created more engagement because people felt like they were contributing and learning at the same time. So I walked out of that class and I said, did it work? Did I teach them what I was trying to teach them? And immediately I walked into the hallway and the students were waiting for me, and we started having an outside the classroom conversation. They had follow-up questions, and I asked them bluntly. I said, okay, this was a different format. Did you like it? Did you learn from it? And not only did they say they were learning from it, but they thought that they learned more based on the fact that they could get their questions asked. They could have other students answer the questions. The same students, they're in their same predicament, right? Their same culture, their same level of knowledge. Having them teach each other was a huge advantageous to creating participation and creating overall engagement. I later learned from a colleague of mine that it's called the psychotic method, where you have an open-ended question and you bring your students to answer that question. And what ended up happening is, not only was I increasing engagement, but it overall increased depth of learning. That conversation created a deep cycle of learning where they were thinking about the subject matter, they were thinking about what was being said, and they were developing a question in their head. And that cycle creates a deep cycle learning that allows that student to retain that information and think about that training when they're trying to overcome something within that topic. So you, the viewer, go and give this a try. Go ditch the pitch, get completely rid of it. Just throw it out the window. Then replace it with an overall structure of your learning objectives, your talking points, and the items that you want to make sure get covered during the class. Then integrate those into a quiz show or an online fun activity. Also, get them talking to each other. And if they don't like talking to each other, put them into group activity and develop that group activity around your learning objectives. After this trial run and after this class on personal finance, I then started integrating it to all my subject matter experts, at least the ones that were keen to giving it a try, the ones that really wanted to find a way to reach out to the students more. Those are the ones that I targeted, and we started implementing this transition from podium and slides over to being in the class and getting participation and ditching the pitch. So if you agree with this statement, leave a comment down below. If you have any questions concerning how to increase engagement, also leave comments down below. Love to hear your questions. And if I can help in any way, I will give it a try. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you next video. Bye-bye.